Hello.
Hi.
It feels like we just performed.
Oh my gosh, yes, we did. We were sitting in the chairs. But you guys were watching a show just now, and you know who this is, right? Yes. So
Do you know who they are?
So I'm Caroline Kepnes. I'm the author of the first two. Oh, weird. And we have Penn Badgley here, who is your Joe, and Sera Gamble, who makes the show for you. And yay, we're all together to talk about you. I mean, it's the most fun of it, the pronoun of it.
Yeah, it really is.
So it's blown up. I mean, it blew up last year, but I don't know about you. I feel like it's blown up from blowing up.
It has
and
some, yeah.
The memes, the conversations, you go to the dry cleaner, you wind up talking about Joe kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what's that been like to feel a part of the zeitgeist for both of you in that way?
I don't know. I mean, are we a part? I feel like you might be more of a part of it. You two might be more of a part of it because I'm just kind of like the vessel through which it happens. I'm like the mask on it.
But your face is in all
But then
memes.
I am the meme.
Yeah, and you're obviously good at your job.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's true. It's like I'm doing something, but I still don't really know how it feels. So yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting now of all times. Being, what is it, January 8th, 2020?
That's it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting time to be in the meme of things.
Yes, because everything else is so calm and peaceful,
Yeah,
stable.
So I'm not sure how it feels. I think but it's interesting.
It is.
There's something this show's doing that
People seem to be watching it. Like, I went to a cafe the other day, and the baristas were all talking about it. So I was like, what show? Like, it's called You. It's crazy.
Oh, right,
Tell
and they
me
have
about it. I haven't seen it.
So then do you tell them after, or do you, no?
No.
Wow, so you're having this totally other kind of, you're able
More
to have
anonymous
this
experience.
other kind of, yeah, because like for me,
you
it's
put
just
the hat
like,
on, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm more recognizable now if I try to go incognito, which I don't really.
Now you can't wear a blue hat.
Yeah.
Like, that's over for you.
I'll try red.
Yes. But the Fagawi hat.
Why did somebody groan? Is there something about a red hat that
The Fagawi hat was red.
geez.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can't. You're gonna have to get
Completely over my head.
You're gonna have to get a yellow hat, like Curious George's handler, right?
Spoiler.
The man in the yellow hat. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So let's talk about season 1. We were here in New York shooting, and everything was great, and it was great. What was it like to do that company move on every level to Los Angeles for season 2?
I mean, I live in Los Angeles, so
Yeah, so it
was
wasn't
less
a
of
company
it
move
was,
for you,
it was more moving for me in season 1.
But for you, it's like a mental, like, okay, now everything that I've worked on is
Everything.
in this. Yeah.
You start over. It's like you're making a whole new show, a season 1 show in season 2. You don't get any of the benefit of knowing the crew, having the same people. So it was stressful in that way, but.
And then when he murders people, you lose actors. Which I'm like, when you write fiction, like, there are no actors. You're not killing people.
You do everything.
Problem.
In the way that you create, you really do. I mean, as far as I'm aware, it seems like you do everything except for distribute the book.
Yes, but but exactly, there aren't real people.
Yeah.
It
was interesting for me because never have I been a part of a show before where I am the only person who's done the whole thing, but like not one person on set like had done it before, and we had a bar to meet now.
Yeah.
You know, we had to make it at least hopefully as good, which I don't know. I mean, I felt some pressure at the same time. It was exciting. It was great to have this cast this year. I think there was something really particular about the way they struck a balance and helped bring to life the world that Joe inhabits so uniquely, so therefore it puts me in like this unique position. The way that James and Victoria particularly, they play Love and 40, the way they're awesome.
I'm told they deserve better.
Well, yeah.
40 anyway.
Yeah, 40, yeah. So it was actually also kind of nice. I mean, I don't know, playing this guy is very isolating in some way, but it also it makes the process for me as an actor very technical, where I feel like, I mean, Greg, co-creator of the series, Greg Berlanti, yeah. He also has like 19 other shows on television. He's like, actually. He said something about the nature of the construct of the show and the character Joe. He was like, I feel like we could put you in Hawaii in this thing. This thing will like work anywhere with Joeing.
Yeah, Joeing.
And I guess we'll probably test that. I don't know.
Hawaii sounds good, actually.
Yeah, I mean, for
It
5
is
months.
an interesting thing, because you and I have both worked on shows that are more ensembles. And there are particular issues with not to get too in the weeds on producing, but there are things about scheduling ensembles and about dealing with ensembles, and like, it really was an issue this season where we were like, God, Penn has been in every scene for 3 months. Yeah. We should really try to give him a day off. And people would suggest a scene and be like, no, we just killed that person. Like, we can't do can't do a scene with her right now. It was hard, you know, I think that's I mean, in terms of making the show, I think just it's a marathon for you from the first frame to the last. And because we keep doing this, hitting this hard reset each season, Joe being Joe, moving around, killing the people that you might want to see a scene with. And, you know, that's really the thing, is developing characters that we can kind of go away with for long enough for you to like put your feet up for 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, but I mean, part of that, I think it has to do with the way that you've created this, because in the book, I know that I've been curious what you've thought of the show, and I'm not gonna like ask you to say something carte blanche that like you don't want other people to know. And I know that you like it. It's not that. It's like, it's like, well, I don't know, I'm gonna assume.
Yes. I too am an addict, yes.
I've been really interested in like the ways that the television show has to be different from a book. It just can't be the same.
They're different mediums, and that's what's so exciting. Like those last 3 episodes where you can't stop watching. Like, I'm curious about that process for all of you, like how conscious you are of that drive and the momentum intensifying to that extent. This, for me, like, it's this cocktail, and obviously, like, everyone is addicted who watches it. That's the word I keep hearing from people, that like, you just can't stop. Like, there is no sleep, there is no food. So how aware, when you're working, on it, are you like, oh, this is one of those scenes that like, this is going to make people stay? Like, do you think about these things? Yeah,
it's all I ever think about. I want to make them stay. But I think even when you're writing a script, I think of it as, you know, you have like a little bit of time at the beginning to set atmosphere, but things should really pick up speed and feel more and more intense, to the point where when I'm writing, I make sure the sentences are short by the end, because I'm hoping people are so engaged with the cliffhanger of it all that they're skipping that stuff. They're just going to the dialogue. So as we go towards the end of the season, we want to feel like we're being squeezed into like a tighter and tighter little box. As I said that, I realized it was a bit of
Yes.
Yeah. And an interesting thing about doing this with your books is that, you know, we talk from the beginning, you and I, about how we're going to do this, it's going to be the same. We're doing Amy, but we're not doing Amy, but we're kind of doing Amy. But these moments when we diverge and then we can loop back and hit something from the book, like meet your book again later, like when she says her name is Amy Adam, that really excites everybody in the writer's room.
Yeah. Oh yeah, when the wedding, I remember reading that and then watching it when there's the couple that just got married and he's paying them to kiss. I'm like, oh, hi guys.
This is like a greatest hits kind of conversation at the beginning of the season, where we invite the writers to everybody say, what's your favorite scene from this book? Or what scene do you want to write? In fact, I invite them to just write a random scene before we start breaking the season. And the wedding, 40 paying to kiss the bride stuck out for a lot of people.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And it is something I want to talk about, because for me, like with reading, with books in general, like you're in the books, you're completely in Joe's head. There is no escape. And you're making a show where you have the challenge of like so many things. I remember first season, I was like, in some ways as the author, I'm forced to confront what he actually did, because he rationalizes things like, oh, so he is allergic to peanuts, like in peanuts. Oh. I am not a moderator. Like, anyhow, But you're in this position where it's a visual medium, and you have to show him being Joe and being Joe. Like in the great ways, like he can write a love letter, but also a body and a meat. Yeah.
Well, that's what I think, like, I guess what I was thinking about before is like, you know, we have not brought the exact Joe on the page to life on screen because of the differences in the medium, they have to differ somehow. Like, namely, is these editions of the young people, like the particularly young people, like the Paco of it all, you know? Paco in the book would make no sense. You don't need Paco because you're in it. Joe is
talking to his typewriters.
Right, and he's a bit more of a, I don't know. I mean, the way that you're able to live inside of the mind of the narrator in a book is just literally impossible in another medium. So there. I mean, this is something that we talked about in the beginning a lot. Like how we have to know where to make him just a little bit more, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think. What's the word? Like likable or like soft and fluffy. There's something
like
about
relatable. I mean, to me, the fear factor in the show is like, oh, I mean, I'd be happy if I met you, if I'm in that show and you're, buying me a cell phone and.
Yeah, right. So
and knowing
it's like,
things and yeah.
And I guess this like delicate balance that we were all wondering before it came out was like, okay, we know we've made something well here, but like. Where's that balance between likability and I don't just want to say unlikability, but that thing. It's like, and that's where I come in, and I have had this moral conflict the entire time that I'm totally transparent about, and I'm just like, I don't ever know how to exactly strike that balance, and constantly terrified that it's not right, but then it happens, and it is, apparently. It's
works.
Really remarkable.
Yeah, like episode for episode. Do you look at the episode as a whole and think, okay, where do we end? Are we rooting for him at the end, or does that, yeah?
No. I mean, I don't think we're...
Anyway, see ya.
Yeah, I'm revealing,
No, but we're making a show, like, I like writing, I think you're the same. I like writing about stuff that scares me. And if somebody came at me like the kind of guy Michael Shannon plays in movies, because he plays people to be a bit creepy sometimes, if I may say. I'm sure he's very lovely in life,
yes,
and could play other, but he's cast in that way. He's a villain when you see him. Well, that guy I know to cross the street. When somebody comes up to me and wants to engage with me about Hemingway, well, I want to engage about Hemingway. And so that's much more frightening to me. The fact that you can never really know someone, and someone can present as so interesting and attractive, and you don't really know what's going on in their head. I mean, I think that's what's so addictive about the books, and that's what we're trying to capture. The horror movie of it all is that you're, kind of trustable seeming,
Yes,
That's why
because
women keep trusting you.
When you casually insert, like when he gets to the hotel room and realizes, like, I think that's 8 or 9. Okay, spoiler alert. Yeah.
Everybody's.
Have you guys seen the show?
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, yeah.
There's 2 people in the front row, and we're just fucking up their whole experience.
You shouldn't be here.
I hear it's still fine. Sorry, you were saying the hotel?
Yeah, like when there are those moments of like when you remind the audience, like he's like, oh, there are plenty of ways to kill people here. I love that like kind of casual. So I want to hear about the voiceover sessions, because those, like you said a few weeks ago, you're just so like creepily in a nice way, wonderful. And we'll talk about the different ideas of creepiness in a minute. But what's it like when you're doing the voiceover? What's that process like? And
I mean,
for both of you, yeah.
Well, what's amazing is that you guys have given me basically free. I go in there without anybody directing me. I'm in there alone, and I just do it a million ways, and they're always like, got it. I was like, okay.
Well, you found something so early on.
Yeah.
Where I didn't know if it was going to work. I was worried. I've heard some bad. My husband used to be a voiceover director, so I've heard some really fucking bad voiceover in my life.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, well, it's fine, no pressure. If it's bad, the show won't work.
Yeah.
But but the thing that that I felt from the very first time, and you record voiceover sometimes before you do the scenes, so frequently,
Most of the time, I
yeah,
think, right?
Oh.
yes.
So then do you play it while you're
No,
out?
I don't. No, I'm not that.
Yeah, but
advanced. That would be really. That
Somebody's
would be
reading it
really,
on
Somebody's
set.
reading
Yeah.
it, but I also can't always remember what I've done. It's more intuitive than it is.
A lot of murder to keep track of. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't keep track of that. That's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes, it is.
Be thinking about it.
But to me, it was so clear from the very beginning that the reason it was going to work is because I heard you talking just to me. It really feels like you strike this tone where you're speaking very intimately to one person. So it captured for me that experience of being inside somebody's head, where you're not performing for a big audience. You know, we wanted it to be different.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Robot is another show that has really interesting voiceover, but he's a bit speaking to a chorus who turns out to be all of us, I think. I haven't seen the latest.
It's
season,
the
but that's what I think it
intimacy
is.
that works. Do you know what TikTok is?
I don't know
Okay,
what
yeah.
TikTok is. Can
So-
you please explain to me
So
what TikTok is?
TikTok is. Well, it's for younger. Yeah.
I will
But
hit
I
the wall.
noticed that, like, my friend's daughter sent me there are people making videos where they're taking Joe's voiceover
Yeah.
and talking.
That's right.
along
It
to
actually, yeah.
And I'm like, it's that intimacy that it's inspiring that, and that's what's captured so well. And it's like, ultimately, if you feel close to someone, then you like them.
Yes.
That kind of overrides what they're doing. So yeah, can we like talk a little about why the I love Joe of it? Because I have wonderful readers, some of who are here, who've been saying I love Joe since 2014. But what's it like for both of you on a daily basis, on a creative basis, like to try and understand that love?
I am so much less conflicted about it, I think, than you are. But I think it's
But
because
that's natural. 'Cause I
I'm
just
so
have to be
zen
in.
because you have to
That's
be
the
in,
only reason.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think I am so fascinated by the fact that what he does wins us over. And part of why I like him so much, so frequently, is because he's telling us the truth in his voiceover in this way of like, he's being polite in the scene and then he's thinking what he's thinking about Ethan or whoever. And I was like, I just had that really mean thought too. So I feel like I'm just like him. I enjoy that feeling of being won over and then having the rug pulled out from under me. So,
Me too.
Yeah.
You not so much.
Well, I think I might be a little different from that. But I mean, it's interesting because it's not that how to say, like it's not that I don't like him because I don't. I'm actually not exactly sure how to explain it, but I do like. It's also not hard to be him. I think it's like it's because all I do is I just believe what he's saying and doing. And you're right. There are a lot of times where what he's thinking and saying he has integrity. He's really sympathetic. He's extremely he's investigative. He follows through. Like.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. See there. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much about him when I'm playing him. The part of me that doesn't like him is just the part of me that's like, well, shit, we just did that, and that was really enjoyable. Now we have to like kill her. And,
Right. Yeah.
so it's me. I know I've done a decent job of kind of like participating in this conversation around it and being very, very moralistic. But at the same time, it's just my visceral experience as a person playing him and being able to enjoy it a lot of the time. And then when it's ugly, it's really ugly. So it's like, oh God, I have to do that today. Like, oh man, it's intense. I remember it was 6:30 in the morning on a Monday. And I was inside this like faux sex dungeon, like applying fake blood to myself. And I just, I was sort of like,
You do have a really singular job because
Yeah.
when we're just like having coffee and talking about how the show is in its subversive, cheeky way burning down the patriarchy, we're on the same page about it. But then when you're patriarchy in the center of that, when you're like the dude,
Totally.
That's uncomfortable, I think, at times, yeah?
Yeah.
Are there things that you're surprised that you don't talk about more regarding the show, like topics that you thought would come up going into this season, or anything that you've been like, oh, I thought I'd be talking about that, or that you're surprised that people?
Do you mean us, like
Yeah.
actually?
Like in your lives in the past couple weeks, yeah, or in.
You know what's funny is that I think that we're developing. She writes the scripts and I act them. You know, it's a pretty intuitive, creative relationship, and we often talk about things at the very beginning and the very end, and then throughout it's just kind of like you get your. You just got to. It's television shooting is a crazy schedule. You know, it's a crazy. You're shooting like often 14 to 16 hours a day, 5 to sometimes 6 days a week, depending on if there's press as well. And then you do this for 5 to 6 months at a time, and it's grueling. And then in the nature of this role, it's like it's a lot. So really, we talk before and after, and then there might be one point in the season where I'm like, I don't understand this one bit. Can you just help me here? But that didn't even happen this season. That only happened in the first one, I think.
I feel like we had one conversation that was like, so how self-aware could Joe possibly become this season?
Yeah.
But it is this thing where, because frequently what you're playing in the scene is not the whole story we're telling, you are in the middle of something where it's impossible, from the perspective of your character, it's impossible to see the whole story, or even to know what the point of the scene is.
Yeah.
And I think, I am just always grateful that you're so game when you come into a scene, even if you just to come in and try it out and see what happens. I think that there's a level of trust that hopefully has been cultivated by the fact that everyone making the show is on the same page about why we're making the show. I mean, we're making something fun, entertaining, where you're like, can you fucking believe they did that thing in episode 6? But fundamentally, our point of view about Joe and what he does and why we're telling the story to begin with, I think hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And if we all have that same North Star, then it's like, well, let's just try this in the scene. We'll put it together with the voiceover. We'll see what's the worst thing that could happen, right? But it doesn't always feel like that. I mean, I'm grateful. I never presume there's going to be a functional relationship in the middle of the madness of TV. So
Yeah,
this show has been such a treat to me.
It has been. It's actually a great set to work on. Like,
And in Victoria, how did you know that she was the one who could?
I mean, that's the genius of Greg Berlanti. He texted me one night and he's like, have you seen that show Hill House? Yeah. He was like, I think that's love. And we saw so many great actors for that role, but to his credit, he was right. He got it in one. I mean, there's a reason he has the 22
He has the touch.
shows.
Yeah.
I mean, he said that about you too. So.
Yeah, no, he seems to know when people are that person.
Yeah, because you feel that in all the for all the characters. I don't know,
Yeah.
just.
Can I tell you something about her?
Yes, you
Because it's a high bar. Elizabeth Lale is a tremendous actor. She did such an amazing job.
Played Beck. R.I.P.
Yes.
Beck,
Yeah,
y'all.
she's our.
I know. Yeah.
She deserves better.
Yes.
We're doing this for her.
But the whole point of season 1, in a certain way, was like let's have the audience fall in love with Beck through Joe's eyes. And so, what a mountain to climb to bring an actor in like you're the next girl, right?
Yes.
And yeah, we're going to try and do some stuff for you, but you're the next girl. So that scene in the first episode that you just saw, where she makes him the chicken, and then she tells him about himself, and then she tells him about the tragedy of her life. She did 2 takes that day. Do you remember? There was only time for 2 takes. And so I was in post with Greg, and we got to that part where we were going to look at the coverage, and the editor was like, just so you know, there's only 2 takes, which is, we were just running behind that day.
Yeah.
And when I saw what she had done the very first time it came out of her mouth, and then the beautiful variation the next time, and then we moved on, I was so relieved. I mean, she just has such an immense toolbox.
She's really talented.
Yeah,
Yes.
She's very talented.
she is.
She takes it very seriously. Like, she's such an artist about it. Her parents they come from the avant-garde and dressed like me right now, I suppose. And I was just, it was not. I've been working in television for a very long time, for 20 years, over 20 years, professionally, not even auditioning.
Right. So did you feel that chemistry thing right away?
Well, what I could really appreciate was somebody who was really interested in the art of it, and that's it's like, again, sometimes you just have to do the work. You never, you're not going to be 100% at all times. You're not going to be dewy-eyed and just in awe of the incredible opportunity that it is, But she was fresh out of art school, and took it very seriously. And I was like, all right, cool.
I love that, actually. Yeah, and it's true that what we do, it can be a grind. We never
So
have enough
much.
time, we never have enough money, but I mean, I've been working in TV almost as long as you, I think 15 years. I've never done a show cynically. I kind of made this little pact with myself that, it could be a job, there could be a hard day, there could be a day that is done very technically, but if I feel like I'm approaching the job from a cynical place, then it's time to figure out something else to do. Because at the core of it, we get to make art and craft together. But like some percentage of the pie is actually art. It's a pretty cool job,
It is. Yeah.
So, yeah, this is just us having a little gratitude circle while you watch.
Sometimes, yeah. Well,
Thanks, guys, for being here.
But sometimes you get to be ahead of it too. Like you added the story last year, the Me Too story, what we call it now, what we wouldn't have when you were writing it.
Right.
So that experience of kind of telling a Me Too story, then having Me Too happen, going into season 2, did that impact your thought about the storytelling and the adaptation of it, of the like, okay, what topics do I want to touch on? Basically, like, did you have a feeling of this is where the culture is going and this is what I want to get on now?
Well, the culture, it's interesting because you wrote the book before this, the hashtag Me Too movement happened. We're just 2 women who want to talk about this stuff.
Yes.
And a huge reason I wanted to do the show was because this vehicle is a way to talk about this in a different way than I had seen before, where we can come at it less from, victim stories, although that's a part of it, but also like, what does this stuff do to men? What messages are we feeding our little boys? And what's the worst case scenario of that?
Yes, because that's my thing. Like we all have it. Like when she's reading that letter, when she gets the letter in her locker, and it's your voiceover, and I'm like, I love him. Like it's such a nice moment of like, no one's laughing. Yeah. That's later in but it's like it's part of the culture, and it's like responding to it. And like, how do you separate your like thoughts from the storytelling and the art of it?
Well, a writer's room is basically like a think tank, and then that extends a little bit into the rehearsal process. I think on set, when we prep, we try to put as much of this in the brain of the director as possible, and then you have that conversation usually with her, but and whichever writer is on set. But I understood what this was going to be really early because the writer's room in the first season was 4 women and 2 men. And the women had a lot to say from the beginning about this college professor who hit on me and that boyfriend who ended up being psychotic. And one of the 2 gentlemen in the room said, I want to just bring into the conversation this sort of white knight idea that has been torturing me since I was a little kid. And that was the moment when I really understood we weren't going to have a one-sided conversation. It's too easy, really, to just say, well, dudes are bad or something. That's ridiculous. That's half of all of us. And it's interesting because Joe's pretty bad.
Well, but he judges and wants good for everyone.
Well, that part I don't even think of as
like you said
gendered,
that Book Joe
really.
and Show Joe are cousins. I'm like, that is so true. We're like, they're different, but at heart, they're both like wanting everyone to be the best they can be. They do want happiness for everyone.
Well, the part where he is thoughtful and bookish and is judging your jacket or all of that stuff, I don't think of that as particularly gendered. I think of that as just the deliciousness of being inside of your main character's brain, to hear their uncensored thoughts. But his motivation for killing, his reason why he would stalk someone, his reason why he would do due diligence on someone like that is totally gendered and only happens, I think, in a culture like ours, where we have certain expectations of women and we have a certain, I think, level of expectation of how a man will act, but also dudes expect women to be a certain way. He is checking her out to make sure she is those things.
Yes.
That comes from somewhere. So that's where we get to, and we can get really heady and feminist and bookish and collegiate about it in the writer's room, and then we boil it down to sort of twists and turns for the scenes.
And he's in a bathtub with blood. Yes.
Right.
Sorry, spoiler, yeah.
You didn't say which bathtub or
I did.
blood.
Yes. But on a day like that, when there's so much raw emotion, in between takes, are you like back to normal? Or do you stay in it?
I think I am. Yeah, I think sometimes, the difference between, say, Victoria and I is like, I wouldn't want to at all construe it so that she seems like she's overly serious, but I'm probably sometimes not serious enough. And, here's also the little secret is that you hear Joe's voice constantly, but a lot of those scenes, I'm not actually speaking. So I come to work a lot of days and I don't have lines.
Yes.
So as much as much as this is a lot of work in one way, there is one part of me that does not have to work on overtime the way that it does with a lot of other roles, and that's memorizing lines.
Right.
So actually, it allows me to be very spontaneous. And you're like, bro, you stare at the camera for 5 minutes straight. That's not spontaneous. But I experience it that way.
So how has that changed you and as an actor? Like, what an experience?
Kinda.
Because I remember even the first season thinking, you're standing outside looking at a building for like
I wasn't
many
standing
minutes.
outside. I was masturbating.
Well, no, and not that scene. I remember that scene. This was another scene.
Oh, the other scene when I'm standing outside.
Yes. You just had the cap on. Dick was
All
in the
right.
pants. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No, this is.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But how is that like going into season 2? What does that do to you to have all of that time? Like it's almost a meditation
It's extremely.
process.
I mean, for me, I'm all about.
So how has that changed you in the past year or so? Would you say, or it hasn't?
By the end of the season, to be honest, I was doing like I don't even know if this is relatable or that I can communicate it well enough. But by the end of the season, I was like developing this headspace that was like a strange playground where I'm just like not thinking about anything that was going on there or the character. It just was like, it was very spiritual. And then you know, they'd say action, I'd open my eyes and I'd get to just play with what words I do have to say, which again is like sometimes not that many out of my actual mouth in that moment. So I don't know, like as serious as I might seem, like I also kind of, it's very fluid and very intuitive. And in between takes, I often am totally laughing through it and constantly helping call attention to how kind of absurd it is. And
Yeah, well, there's a masterful tone there. Like, so when you're making this, how do you decide between like creepy, like that's gonna be a meme, and creepy, like uh-oh, like that makes him unenjoyable, like not unlikable, but in that way, like it's fun to watch. And when the dark things are happening, there's a tone that's like makes it exciting instead of.
I have never thought about the memes.
No.
I'm a little worried I'm going to start to now, but I have never thought about that.
I told you. Sorry,
I should.
that's right. This is up to
I
us.
said I scare easily, and I knew that when they did that, I would. Yeah.
I'll tell you a shorthand. You know, a shorthand.
Wait, did you just actually get scared?
Yeah, no, there's someone right here. Yeah.
That is
I scare
so
easily.
precious. That's like so. That's so sweet. Because you wrote this book.
I used to.
And you just actually got scared.
At my first job in New York, I would sit at my desk, and the guy in the office would say, "I'm going to come scare you." I'm like, "No, you're not." And he'd come up and go, "Ah!" And I'd scream at the top of my lungs. It's just, it's why I write these things.
That's really sweet. I mean that. I don't mean that in a condescending way. Like, I
No,
mean,
I know.
It's a very touching thing.
So these are questions from you guys. Ready? What went into casting a deaf actor to play James?
We called David Rappaport, our casting director, a little bit early when the story was on the board, which is a cork board of index cards, which is our first step before we sit down and write the script. Someone in the writer's room pitched the idea that we would cast a hearing impaired actor and that the character would be deaf. So I just called the casting directors early to sort of give them the heads up, because that's a very specialized acting pool and they might have to look beyond LA, but because they're very seasoned casting directors, they had cast other roles, they had people in mind, they were really excited. And so then it was just about watching cool tapes of people being really great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this kind of one. Okay. What literary character would you say is a parallel to Joe this season? And does he experience a great deal of character development, or is he simply adjusting to his surroundings like a chameleon? That's from Veronica R.
Well, do you think he's gone through character development? I mean, you've seen it, right? A lot of you, you've watched the whole thing. I'm curious. How many people here have watched the whole thing?
Damn.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you think he changed a little?
Yes.
Well, we did the obvious one. We said he was a bit like Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which I've read.
It was the low-hanging fruit version. I don't know. For those of us who read Russian novels. Nerds.
I think
What do you think?
I felt like there was change in shoujo. There was change.
Yeah.
Like I felt, in shoujo. At the end, I like.
Yeah.
And then
I thought of it as walking him up to a cliff. And that cliff was, as we would discuss, Penn, was the self-awareness cliff. So in like episode 1, Candace says, I'm going to show you who you really are. And then the problem will take care of itself because you won't be able to live with yourself, essentially. And then that really is the hammer that hangs over his head for the whole season is, I'm going to be shown who I really am and I'm going to feel that. And then we give him that moment. We weren't all that subtle about it. He's like looking at his own reflection when it happens.
Right, yeah.
And then external circumstances, namely love, conspire to basically yank him back from that cliff. So in my mind, it's sort of a tragedy in that there is a moment, I think, towards the end of, I'm so sorry, you guys who haven't seen it. There is a moment toward the end of the season where Candace wins, but that could be good for like the body count of Los Angeles, where maybe he would pick another path. And because he has found somebody who is so darkly well-suited for him, that moment never really comes to fruition the way that it could have.
Well, that's to me, like, when I started writing, to me, it was a lot about the way that these forms of communication require us to have different versions of ourselves. You have one way of texting with someone where you speak a certain language, you're one person here, one person there. Would you say that we all have a little Joe in us in that way? This is like a heightened version of that, where in that way we're all we'd all like to be a better person than we are, and I'm like, this is just someone who could really use, some help doing that.
Yeah, he needs a lot of help. No, I think the Joe that is universal for us is that we see in relationships the need for others to change and not ourselves. I think we see the adversary as opposed to the friend, the stranger rather than the friend. We really do, because what we're seeking to derive from personal relationships seems to be, in a lot of ways, it's like it's a fantastical idea of happiness. And there comes a point in any relationship, if it goes long enough, and if you go deep enough, if you actually intend to have a real relationship, whether it's friendly, romantic, you're going to discover that this person is wholly imperfect, unable to fulfill your needs because another person cannot do that for you. And then, but of course, what's different for all of us is that we don't follow that logic so closely and then try to murder people, So that's where the device is fun for us to watch and consider.
Yes.
But I think that's where Joe is like utterly universal. It's just seeing the stranger and the friend and seeking happiness from others.
And this question about change, because it's like the way I feel about the world. Well, we all have the ability to search for things and find out information and zoom in on a picture in a way that we haven't had before. So how are we ever going to really change when we all have these abilities now?
That's dark.
Anyway.
Wait, which abilities? What are you talking about?
I mean, we all have access to information.
Oh, yeah.
And the ability to, if I want to know about someone, if I want to see what someone said about someone, if I want to lie about how I feel about someone.
Yeah.
Even the phrase, hate watch or hate, it fascinates me, where I'm like, no, it used to be you just watch something, or not with hate.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true that it seems like we're culturally becoming more and more cynical, and we have more and more anxiety, and yet the things of comfort certainly seem to be more available to more people, not to at all paint over the inequality of wealth and privilege and access and these things, which again is where Joe is like everyone. He's seeking happiness from the things that will not give it to him.
Yes.
It's not an external circumstance, it's internal. And so in a sense, all of this other stuff is, in a way, it's like that is so integral and universal for us all that clearly, maybe the show's success is a reflection of it striking that chord. I don't know, you wrote it. And then you wrote it.
And does Joe personify a culture that has made internet stalking easy/normal? I like that / easy/normal. Whoa.
Yeah.
Can you say it again? Say it again.
Does Joe personify a culture that has made internet stalking easy/normal?
He does, but so does almost everyone on the show. I mean, Peach personifies that, Beck personifies that, and 40 personifies that. The Love, who turns out to have a couple problems of her own, is
problems.
One of the things that's the most unusual about her is how detached she is from social media. And I think what you're talking about, what that question is talking about, is it's all, this is how we sold the show in the room, Greg Berlanti, his team and me, is we were like, we're all exhibitionists and we're all voyeurs now. That's what our culture has basically boiled everything down to. And on, in a landscape like Twitter, it's sort of a free-for-all. It encourages people's loudest, shrillest, least considered,
yes.
if I may, kind of responses to things, and then you kind of hide. You're anonymous. The whole thing is the memeified hat. But
yes.
I mean, it is all. I mean, it's dark, but it's also. I mean, fuck. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and you handle, like, I feel like you go there in the show, like you have the right amount of it in the show. How do you decide how much of it to get in there? Like whenever it comes up and we know that Joe's going on a phone and gonna look, like how do you strike that balance?
I mean, we basically just try to capture what our lives are like. And that's all of the writers, and we made sure when we were putting together the writers' room that there were writers in their 20s, and the assistants are in their early 20s, and so because technology changes so quickly.
They know what TikTok is.
Yeah, they do. They're probably on it right now,
yes.
for all we know. But I think every 5 years almost is a different generation in terms of our relationship to technology. But it isn't like we have to put a lot of thought into it because all of us are checking our phones every 25 seconds. So, I mean, if anything, it's like up there with the fact that nobody on TV ever goes to the bathroom. It's like people would be checking their phones so much more on the show if it were realistic.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. Now I'm thinking of scenes where, people aren't even holding them. Look at us, we don't have ours.
Yeah. I was thinking, I mean, I'm kind of joking, but I'm also, my experience has been, I don't know, I wouldn't claim that my relationship to my phone or social media is healthy, but what I do know is that I've never had social media while being an anonymous person. So I've never thought, like, for instance, I have a very close friend who, like, I think is a really stand-up person, and this person said that, like, when she meets somebody in a business setting, she'll often go on and like just Google who they are, just to kind of like do a little bit of, like, I would never do that because of my relationship to being Googled, which I don't intellectualize. Right. I don't intellectualize.
No,
at
it's
all.
your reality.
But I just know that, like, well, if somebody's going to do that, that doesn't mean that they've understood anything about me. So I've never really, there's never been any idea that doing that to get to know somebody or to understand something about them, never has it ever even occurred to me. Like, literally, so what I'm saying is everybody should be famous. It's great for your mental health. Not true.
So many influencers are like, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the plan. Okay, so Kat and Cole would like to know, if you could bring any character back to life, who would it be?
Wow. You guys are really feeling it. That's nice.
I know. Oh.
Ron! They don't even know who Ron is. Maybe.
What about you?
Oh my God, I love them all though.
It's
not like we killed them because they were terrible. We love them.
Yeah, no, I remember saying to you to season 1, like, oh, well, maybe Peach doesn't die. And you're like, no, this is the story. Like, this is what happens.
Maybe we could do it for season 1 because of the souls here who have not seen season 2.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
Yes.
I would like to see Benji again.
Yes.
All right.
He had more life to
But also, we worked really hard to make you enjoy it a little bit when he died.
Yeah. Well, also, we can't separate it from the people that we know who played them.
Lou.
I mean, Lou Taylor Pucci is a really amazing actor. For me, I mean, it's just got to be. Yeah, Beck. I was like, what's her name? I can't remember her name. Oh,
You move on so quickly.
I really moved on. I was trying to think of the other, who else died in season 1? What other,
Peach.
who other men, no, but what men died? It was Ron and there was Benji, that's it.
Well, yeah, Peach, Ron.
Just
Yeah.
4 people
Yeah,
that you know of
the light
so far. Oh, right, Elijah.
Elijah, right. That's a deep cut.
Yeah,
That's a B-side
Yep.
right there. Yeah.
that one was such a flick.
Yeah.
Right?
He fell.
Like, yes. How did you decide what plots to take from the book and what changes you wanted to make from the book to the show?
I get asked this question a lot, and it's an intuitive, organic process, but it's also like when you're writing TV, there are so many rules. Like if you're making an hour-long drama, it's probably about 45 minutes long, give or take. And it has 6 acts, though they may be invisible to you because you're watching them on Netflix and there's no commercials. And all of those things kind of feed into the decision-making process. A book we live inside Joe's head for hours and hours reading your books, and I love it. And I don't care if he ever does anything, because when he's sitting in a chair, he's wildly entertaining to me. But TV is a visual medium, so we need to give you action, and we need to give you conflict. And usually conflict is expressed by like at least 2 people in a room talking, fighting, or fucking, cooking, frequently in season 2, baking. So, you know, I think of it as like a translation process or a Talmudic interpretation, if you will.
Yes.
Where we talk a lot about the plot points of the book. We talk about what we love the most. We talk about how it makes us feel. And then we ask ourselves, how can we evoke that feeling, but in a medium where we're going to watch Penn walk into a room and do a thing, where we're not able to put the camera inside of his brain. We have to replicate that feeling using a couple of different tools. And I don't know if that answered the question at all, but that's the best I can do.
You said Talmudic, so that's all
Yes,
that counts.
yes. At the end of episode 1, we see Joe is back up to his old ways, but he's marginally more self-aware this time. What were some of the challenges in writing/portraying his growth? So this person thinks he did grow. A weed can grow, but it's still a weed at the end of the day. Or would you say he doesn't grow? From Kimberly.
I see it as, for Joe at least, I see it as like, you know, we grow cyclically. The same challenges visit us again and again, but maybe we've progressed a bit. So they visit us in a bit of a different form. And maybe, you know, we've made it one step further, but now the hurdle has just moved with us. To some degree, it seems like Joe is that. I mean, maybe he has progressed a bit. He does seem to, I mean, he cries.
Yeah. Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, again, when I'm living as him, like he's changing, he's growing. He believes what he's saying.
Do you find when you're out in the world, do you do it now? Do you do it in your head of like, okay, like do you, when you're out at the coffee shop, like,
No,
do you Joe it up to you? Like,
I always did.
No, I mean, of course we all do. Like the
Yeah.
reason I'm good at playing him is because I understand that my mind is like racing at all times, basically. So if anything, Joe has been a great, anytime I feel as though there's anytime I understand him, I'm also like, okay, well, gotta work on that, you know? Like, you know what I mean?
I know, yes.
I mean, I'm simplifying it because,
No, I know.
it's a very like deep process. Like I can only imagine for you because you're creating the whole
I was
thing.
outside before, and the guy outside is like, so, you know, what's it about? I'm like, oh, it's a guy, he reads a lot, and then he kills people. And the guy's like, I'm staying away from you. I'm like, no, it's not like that. Like, but I'm like, Jesus, you know, what happened? Like, I've never been good at the one-liner of what it is. What is your one-liner about it in your head?
When we sold the show, I told people I'm working on a love story about a stalker.
But
But
there's
it
this
is
little part of me that's like, he's not stalking, he just likes her. Like,
the elevator pitch. We would say one thing. It was really fun back before anyone had seen the show to say, well, we're doing a show that's a little bit of like 500 Days of Summer meets Dexter, because to watch people do that math was really fun. But it is
Maybe
an
the one.
Yes.
Right, but I always feel it's a bit dangerous because like we're having this conversation and we like each other and we're joking and we're having fun. It's like the subject matter that's at the very heart of this show is actually quite serious, you know? What happened to Candace in real life is dead fucking serious. We're a very cheeky, subversive show because we're in the point of view of someone who's in a profound amount of denial and is wildly entertaining in doing so, right? But to me, that's always, like, it's less about coming up with a one-liner, which is sort of my job. It's more about, I always feel like I'm sort of flirting with this edge where I want to be conversational and entertaining and even a little bit glib about the show because the show is entertaining and it's a little bit glib. But I would never want to make light of the real things that happen like this. So that's an interesting tightrope walk, I think, for people who make fiction. You know?
Because then it's good therapy for people to be able to laugh. Like I've heard from a lot of people who've been in difficult relationships and said, oh, this helped me, wanted to make other people read it, to say, this is what it's like to be with someone like this. So like they do make you laugh, and then somehow we're all kind of programmed to forgive certain behaviors on a smaller scale.
Right, but we're not like an issue show. We're not really a learn and grow show.
Right.
We're more, you know, we've got it. The message is in there if you want to put that particular lens on and take a look at it. But for many other people, it's just.
It's a fuck, fight, and food show.
Totally. Right.
Isn't that what you said before? Talk, fuck, fight, food, cook.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. I was supposed to look at the clock when they gave.
We've way gone over, but I hope you guys enjoyed this.
So I think I'm supposed to walk us out and say thank you everyone for being here. Is that because we're
We could say that now.
Okay. You guys, thank you all for. I don't know what time it is, but thank you.